There we go. What's up, man?
What's up? How are you?
Good, good. Just watched some Thursday night football, but I wanted to check in with you because you just traded for Ceedee Lamb in our fantasy football league, and literally the week that you do, Dak is out, hamstring torn off the bone.
Yeah, this has been my, I guess, fantasy life for the last 3, 4 years, right? We've been in the
Yeah.
same league. You've seen me do this where I'll draft a combination of like foundational pieces and then it's keeper league. So you pick up your hopefully future building blocks, and then I lose my patience and don't want to wait. And I trade them away to some bum to get their stars, and then somebody gets hurt, and then I'm out of the running. So
Well,
it looks like it's happening again, but I don't know. What do you think? You tell me.
well. Tell me first, who did you trade for Ceedee Lamb? Let's talk about the trade first.
Ceedee Lamb trade was Brian Thomas Jr.
Okay.
as well as my IR spot, which was Rasheed Rice.
Okay.
So it's auction league. So we have average, tier one, wide receiver one, average price is somewhere between 140 on the high end to about $96. Brian Thomas Jr. looks by all means to be a wide receiver one as early as next year, maybe even by the close of this fantasy season. So giving him away at $20 was it hurt. Now,
Yeah.
Rasheed Rice at $33, I guess we could just debate that as well.
No, I mean, I think it was a good all-in move to go in for this season because Rashi's not coming back. Trevor Lawrence is hurt. Who knows if he's even playing this week? So, uh, who's the backup in Jacksonville? Is it?
It doesn't matter. Blake Bortles, let's just say.
Yeah, yeah. Even with Trevor Lawrence, I mean, Brian Thomas was doing well, but it's still not a. It's not something you want to bank on. It's not a CeeDee Lamb star
No.
player, but. Now you got to deal with the fact that it's going to be Cooper Rush for the foreseeable future. Uh, and I was just looking at some stats. I mean, CD actually hasn't done too bad with CD with Cooper Rush. Just going back to last year against Washington, he had 13 catches for 98 yards, 10 catches for 61 yards, 7 for 90. And this is yeah, these aren't bad stats. I mean, he puts up numbers. He gets a lot of targets, 13 targets, 10 targets, 14 targets. So Cooper Rush is, I mean, he knows where his bread is buttered. So he's going to be throwing. Plus, who else does Dallas
Listen,
have?
now that was when they had no other options. Now they have the formidable Jonathan Mingo lining up on the other
Oh,
side of CeeDee Lamb.
Mingo was his name. Oh, yeah.
Oh
With no
man.
with no running game. And most of these games, who was Dallas's running back last year? That's Tony Pollard. Uh, and then I think some of these even go back to when Zeke was on the team and
I
when
think,
Zeke
yeah, I think a couple of
actually.
games, a couple of years ago when Zeke was there as well. Yeah. So I guess what is your advice to somebody who's maybe in my position? They've either just traded for CeeDee Lamb, they've rostered
Yeah.
CeeDee Lamb. We're closing in on the playoffs. We're what, about 5 weeks away from playoffs, and now you're looking at this. You've got CD with, not to mention CD has a AC joint sprain as well,
Yeah.
which they're
Yep.
saying is not going to keep him out. We don't know. I think we're just, they're saying he's day to day. He's no longer got the questionable tag, I think, depending on your platform. I know in Yahoo he still does. So what do you do with CD Lamb? Do you hold him? Do you trade him? Do you rock with him?
I mean, right now, to be honest, his value is probably the lowest it's been all season. That's the problem. And then you got to figure. At what point does is Dallas even out of it that it's not even worth playing him if he's injured, if he got a shoulder thing? Why is he putting his body on the line if Dallas is completely out of it? I mean, they got Washington ahead of them at 7-2, I think. Philly's 6-2. Dallas is 3-5, and they're playing. What are they playing at Philly? No, they're playing at home against Philly this week. Then they got Houston at Washington. um, on I think that Thanksgiving against the Giants. Ah, I mean, and those are all 4 games, the minimum of 4 games with Cooper Rush without Dak. So, um, I mean, you got to ride it. To be honest, there's nothing else you can do. His value's low. You just gotta you traded away all the assets that you had. I think you had another trade that same day for AJ Brown. He got dinged up a little bit, but I think he returned to practice, so I think that should be okay. But yeah, but even after that, then Cincinnati, their defense hasn't been great. Then they got at Carolina, who is in a what is that? They're the 25th worst pass defense. Uh, Tampa Bay is pretty bad. Tampa Bay is a 30th pass defense this year. And then at Washington, at Philadelphia, at Washington. So, well, the Washington game won't count. That's not the fantasy playoffs, but the last game of the season is going to be at Philadelphia. Philadelphia's doing. I mean, their cornerbacks aren't too bad. Cooper DeJean's coming up. What is it? Quinyon Mitchell's looking like he's doing better. They still got Darius Slay. Uh, Chauncey Gardner Johnson's back there. Reed Blankenship gets tackles fantasy wise. So I don't know how good of a safety he is, but yeah, I think as long as they're still trotting him out there, you gotta play him. He's one of the few studs that's still in this league that you just gotta rock with. They don't have anyone else. That's the problem.
I,
They really don't have anyone else.
I think I agree with you. I think this is the way that I look at it. There's like three tiers, right? If you're for sure going to make the playoffs, which I think I am, I have a couple of tough matches. I face you next week, but I feel really good about my chances for the playoffs. So if you're for sure going to make the playoffs, I think you got to write it out. You got no choice. He
Yeah,
only has two bad games left as far as tough matchups, and
yeah.
there's some cheese out there. You might have possibility of game script working against him in some of the games. You know, they may hopefully be in a position to run the clock out, but who knows? With Cooper Rush, I think anything is on the table. If you're a bottom half team, and especially if you're in like an auction keeper or keeper type of league, and you're for sure out of the playoffs, you need to get out of there fast. And one potential trade target might be Jonathan Brooks. See if you can't get Jonathan Brooks. What do you think about trying to move a Ceedee Lamb if you're a bottom feeder team and you're out and you've got Jonathan Brooks soaking up your IR spot? What do you do with him? Do you move him for Ceedee?
I mean, not straight up. I mean, but the thing is, I have no idea what Carolina is doing, man. We were just talking earlier. They signed Miles Sanders to a pretty decent contract 2 years ago. Chuba was on a rookie deal. They drafted Jonathan Brooks in the second round. He was supposed to come back from his ACL and be kind of a stud. And then Chuba's done well. I mean, not hating on Chuba, but to sign him to what, an $8 million a year contract, and then you have Miles Sanders, who'll probably be gone in the offseason, but why do that when you got Jonathan Brooks? Would I trade CeeDee Lamb straight up for Jonathan Brooks? Hell no. I mean, if you said that to me, I deny that. I decline that real quick. But if I was completely out of it, you gotta go try to pick off some up and comers. Brock Bowers would be a good one to look at. I know you had him earlier in the year and you traded him away, but he looks like a stud. The Raiders don't have a lot of options. I would definitely he's
Now,
gonna be a target hog.
this is my counterpoint to that. So my counterpoint to Brock Bowers is this. Is chances are if you are rostering Brock Bowers, you're probably planning on punting the tight end position like I was.
Yeah.
And I thought, you know what? I'm not worried about tight end. I'm just gonna go in on young talent, cornerstones, make some trades, hustle, which I did. It just so happens that everybody I traded for got hurt. But I don't know if the Brock Bowers person is gonna be in the position to the Jonathan Brooks guy for sure is.
But
I
you
can
know
tell
what's
you he
crazy?
is.
But you know what's crazy? Look at Sam Laporta. He probably the number one tight end drafted in most normal drafts. he's done nothing. Every league I have Dalton Kincaid. I'm a Bills homer, but still, I thought he'd be better than what he is right now in terms of producing fantasy wise. I mean, Tucker Kraft is up there. I mean, Mark Andrews has done next to nothing. He's come on as of late, but still, it's not like he's tearing it up. Yeah, I mean tight ends. I mean Kelsey's actually I think he had 14 catches last week on Monday night. But yeah, it's tough. I mean, tight ends are so hit or miss. Who knows what happens with the Raiders next year? Do
Yep.
they draft a
Yep.
quarterback and get a whole bunch of talent? Who's their coach next year? Is it AP or is it I don't know, Dion, Ben Johnson? Who's the OC for Tampa Bay? Liam Cohen.
Yep. Yep.
Yep, he's
And
solid.
so looking at it from what you're saying is, most of the running back spots are out because there were no young running backs drafted.
No.
There's very unreliable, seldom reliable tight ends. I guess maybe Brock Bowers is a good option. So really, if you're the CD Lamb owner looking to move, then your only real chance of getting any type of returns is if you're A, in a keeper league, and B, can get a wide receiver back in return that's comparable.
Yeah.
So who's a comparable wide receiver that you would like? Maybe a keeper wide receiver that you would like to get back in return for CeeDee Lamb if you're one of those bottom feeder teams.
Look, I hate to go back to the same Bills well, but Keon Coleman looks like he could be maybe not a number one next year, but a pretty solid number two. Kind of like a T. Higgins, not the fastest guy, but got good hands, jump ball ability. That may be an option. Who else is there? You could even try to trade for T. Higgins. Who knows where he's going to be next year? Uh, no one's trading Drake London right now. I tried to get him from you all off season, but that didn't work. Yeah, I mean, you could even try to get Ayuk for cheap, but if you want to see if he's a keeper, but he tore his ACL, MCL.
And
Who
MCL,
knows?
yeah, he probably, we've seen this trend where, these ACL, MCL injuries, they rush back, but then oftentimes the players that go through these injuries throughout the rehab process or whatever, it takes them about 1 year to get back up to their normal self. And, Brandon Ayuk's game, relies a lot on his cuts and
Yep.
he's changed of direction very quickly and all that, and that's exactly what you're relying on your ACL and MCL to do for you. So
Yeah.
I don't know if Brandon Ayuk would be my target, but maybe the first half of the year, Jawan Jennings next year is a good keeper target trade for CeeDee Lamb. What do you think about that?
I mean, I picked him up in fantasy twice now. I picked him up right before his huge game, and then I dropped him, and then I picked him up again right after IU got hurt. Look, if you can get Neighbors has been kind of hot and cold also. So that team may not be doing that great. JSN had a huge game last week. I don't know how many years Tyler Lockett's got. Maybe try to get him.
I think
Khalil
I
Shakir, again, is not
I
too
think
bad.
that's the one for me, Rashid. JSN has to be. I mean, he was one of the best prospects coming out of college. Landed
Yup,
on just the crap team with um, just really bad utilization. I mean, basically, the majority of his targets were coming at or around the line of scrimmage.
yup,
And now everything has changed. You see him without DK for a week, um, and he just looked like a whole different player than he has the last several years. And who knows what DK's timeline is with Seattle. Um,
yeah,
I mean, everything seems to kind of be up in the air in Seattle. The next few years seems like everything is on the table. But if I'm that organization, I'm hanging on and I'm still fisting JSN.
yup.
But hopefully you can pry him away from your fantasy peers.
I got two more names for you right before we cut this off here. One is Jaden Reed. I think he has the potential to be a number one. They just got so many options in Green Bay that he just doesn't get that many enough looks. But I think he's talented enough to be Zay Flowers-esque or a better version of Darnell Mooney, who's having a great year. And the other one, if you really just ready for next year and it's a keeper, Marvin Harrison Jr. He was a first round pick in most normal drafts, snake drafts. So, and he has severely underproduced, even though he has 55 catches, 445 yards, which is not bad. I mean, he's 1 yard less than Tyreek Hill, but he hasn't lived up to the hype that he came in with. So, but
I think
those are
I'm
three good.
I
Yeah.
think I'm making the move for Marvin Harrison Jr., Malik Neighbors just below him, and then JSN.
Yep.
Jaden Reed, I think, is the one that I'm a little bit wishy-washy on, just because. Zay Flowers' grade has taken him years to develop, though. Um, and even now we see kind of inconsistent use. Almost Rashad Bateman is kind of doing the things that Zay Flowers is supposed to be doing there. But with some of this, we see this cover two scheme taking over. We're curious to see how many more teams take that on and how much that takes the Zay Flowers prototype player down a
Yep.
notch a little bit moving forward.
I'm
Um,
with you. I
so
think
that's my ranking.
neighbors, Marvin Harrison, those are the ones. I think you could try to get them for a CD and see if you can, if you're ready to pack it in for the season. But
I just feel
otherwise,
better about Kyler this year, next year, and beyond than
yup,
whoever's going to end up in New
in
York.
New York.
Who knows who's going to be there? So
All right, man. Well, we'll do this again. We'll do this again in a couple of days, and we'll talk about another player here.